Hello, everybody. I'm proud, honored, humbled to be in the presence of a wonderful musician, Mr. Ralphe Armstrong, bass player, aficionado of all music as far as I'm concerned. But let's just start here. Let's just do some name dropping, okay? Ralphe.
Yes, Dan.
Have you worked with these people, Mahavishnu Orchestra?
In the words of a great poet, certainly. That's Jerome Horowitz. Curly of the Three Stooges, yes.
Yes.
I'm a very jovial person, as you know.
I know you are, and that's why we have you here.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Because
thank you, old friend.
You're able to put humor into all of this very serious business that you've done.
Yes, I've been blessed.
John McLaughlin.
Yes.
World Youth Symphony with Leonard Bernstein.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Beatles producer George Martin.
Yes.
Galen McKenna.
McKinney. Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Miles Davis.
Yes.
Herbie Hancock.
Yes. That's something.
Patrice Rushen.
Yes.
Jon-Luc Ponty.
For 10 years, yes.
Carlos Santana.
Yes.
Frank Zappa.
Yes.
Earl Klugh.
Yes.
Don Sabetsky.
Yes.
A wonderful arranger.
Yes, great producer with the London Symphony.
With the London Symphony Orchestra,
Right,
whom
that's
you've
what we
also
quoted
worked
before.
with the LSO, the London
Right,
Symphony
that's
Orchestra.
right.
Narada Michael Walden.
One of my best friends on the earth, yes.
Detroit's Keith Washington.
Yes.
And, of course, Aretha.
For 30 years.
Wow. I know you can go on and on with this.
Yes, yes.
I know you can. But it's amazing to me that somebody who came out of Detroit, who, by the way, attended some of the same schools that I did in the name of Cass Tech.
I didn't know that.
Well,
I wonder why you're such an intellectual.
Well, honors band for Cass Tech. I did not do what you did. You were a student at Cass Tech forever. Well.
They threw me out when they got tired of me.
Well, I doubt that. But then, you had these wonderful experiences that took you from Cass Tech. And by the way, while I'm talking about Cass Tech, I don't know who the instructor was at the time for your band.
I had Jack Shelby. He just passed 2 years ago.
Yes, I know, because Jack Shelby was my band teacher at Cody High School.
Whoa, that's going way back. Wow.
That's way back. And then, we had Larry Teal Jr. at Cody, I'm sorry. But there were the Beejans and the Arnaldis and all these other people.
Yes, Harold
right?
Arnaldi.
Yes. And so we were under the tutelage of some really good people, right?
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Masters of music.
Yeah.
Intellectuals and disciplinarians. They insisted you do things the right way. And I don't know if you remember Emmanuel Cortez.
Yes.
He was from Budapest. And I had to see this man at 7 o'clock in the morning. And he would be cussing me out in Hungarian. You know nothing about the instrument. Your technique is terrible. Pay attention. What are you doing? The sound is trashy. It's trash. It's trash. That's how he would talk.
Yeah, right.
He was a great man, but he was a friend too.
Yeah.
He taught with compassion.
So from those days of Cass Tech and your earlier days, when you started, were 7 years old when you started this music business?
I started playing at 7.
Yeah.
The reason why, I saw my uncle, Lee Crockett, we call him L.C. Armstrong, and my dad always wanted me to play the violin. I hated the violin because I never could get a sound out of it. It was squeaky. I played till I cried. Dad, I want to play the violin. Play the damn fiddle, boy. And I hated it. So finally, it was a Sunday. I never forget it. We went to my uncle Lee Crockett's place, and he was a sharp dresser. Back in the early 60s, guys were sharp. They wore suits and ties every day.
All right.
You know.
Right.
And I heard him play this golden K bass, this big violin. And I looked, and he gave me strawberry ice cream and the sound of this rich instrument, the tone deep. I told my dad, "Oh, Daddy, I want to play like Uncle Elsie. I want to play like Uncle Elsie. I want to play the bass. I want to play the bass." And I almost pulled my father's pants down. But he was like, "Doggone it, dag nabbit, boy, leave me alone. I'll get your doggone bass." So the next year, my father actually made me a bass. It was a square. He made it out of old pine wood, and it had a round hole like an acoustic guitar.
Right.
And he put a bass burner. He was a luthier from Tennessee, and put an old German neck. That neck he put on that bass had to be at least a couple 100 years old. He found somewhere, and that's how I got started.
But people are going to ask, okay, Ralph, what drove you to this wonderful career that you've had? You know, you've met all these people, you've worked with all these people, but early in your life, can you talk about your inspiration? What was the driving force for you to propel you to where you've gotten?
My mentor and teacher who mentored me was Ron Carter. Wow. When I heard Ron Carter at the age of 14 live at a CTI concert at the old Ford Auditorium, and I was taken there by, this is something that nobody doesn't know. This is the first for your interview, your network.
All right.
I was taken to this concert by Dr. Lonnie Smith, the great organist.
Oh, my goodness.
He introduced me to Ron Carter. And my teacher...
Why? How did that happen, though? Why Lonnie Smith?
I met Lonnie playing. He would come around, the jam sessions in Detroit. I think I met Lonnie over at Baker's one night. And I came and sat in as a kid, My mom would take me, or Racy Biggs' father would drive us.
Sure,
we were
Racy
kids.
Biggs.
Yeah, we were kids.
Yeah.
So he liked the way I played. And my teacher, Anderson White, who was also one of my conductors at Interlochen, was friends with Ron Carter. So I listened to Ron play that night, and I was totally mesmerized with the tone. And he was playing the bass with a Barkus Berry pickup. And it was modern. You could hear it through the speakers and deep sound. And I went up to him, and I played his bass because he let me play his Jusac bass. And I was just a kid, and he looked and smiled at me. Then when I got through playing, Jack DeJohnette was there too. The great drummer. Jack DeJohnette, Eric Gales, they were all laughing. So Ron Carter looked at my teacher, Anderson White, who was a genius. He ended up retiring at Indiana State. Master classical instructor, concert conductor. Ron looked at him and said, "How dare you let him play the bass like that? His technique is horrible. You sent him to me. How do you let him do this? You know better than Eddie." It was like Andy White. I was like, damn, he's talking to Andy White like that? So Ron called me, took my phone number. When he came to town, he would always call me and give me lessons. My mother would drop me off at his hotel, and he had me playing the tetrachord, the 8-tone scale. He had me play it 1,492 times.
Wow.
But it was like this. It doesn't sound right. It's still not right yet. until this is something that young musicians really need to understand this.
Yeah.
Until I developed a musical tone, that's where it starts. And now at this age, I really understand what he was doing with me, as showing me how to get a sound. So if I play on any instrument, it's going to sound like me.
Right.
That's what people have a misconception when they talk about James Jamerson. I'll get to him later. They don't understand it's about the sound. You could have this bass. I don't give a damn what kind of bass it is. I'm going to make it sound like myself because it comes from the body. And they talk, it's the amplifier. That's a bunch of BS. It's the sound you get from your fingers. So that's how,
it's part of your personality, your DNA, whatever, right?
Exactly. And today, I think the way our educational system is, musicians don't understand that. They want to think it's a gimmick, it's a cable, it's the strings. It's the labella strings, it's this, it's that, it's bunk. I use all kind of strings. I still sound like myself. I use certain strings to have different effects.
Right.
But it's still going to make it sound like me.
Right. So this goes on from that inspiration, and you are now at Cass Tech.
Yeah, I'm teaching part-time.
And you're teaching, you are teaching part-time. But while that high school experience, and by the way, I needed to share something with you. When I was in honors band at Cass Tech, and not that this is about me, but when I was there, the interesting thing was, and these were on Saturdays, just Saturdays. I wasn't like you. I did not have that whole Cass Tech experience, which was a beautiful school, and still is.
Yes, it is. To this
and
day,
it
we're
still
trying.
is. But when we had our breaks, everybody would go into their corners, their individual corners. And there'd be a group of 4 or 5 singers. It could be bass players with saxophone players. Everybody was doing their own thing. You would think that, let's go out for a coffee or a sandwich break or whatever, but they were continuing. So it was like so inspirational for me. Did you have those kinds of experiences, Cass?
All the time. We tried to get better. And I tell you who I went to school with at Cass. One of the greatest piano players, actually 2 of them, that ever walked the face of the earth. I went to school, and she always told me I gave her a first job, which is another story. Jerry Allen, great Jerry Allen, bless his soul, my dear friend.
Right.
And also, his nickname at the time, he doesn't like it now, I don't call him that anymore, was Mouse, and that's Greg Fillinganes, who conducted a lot of Michael Jackson's, recorded all of that stuff, recorded with Quincy Jones, Herbie, Hancock, he was there. And also another guy who was the head, he was like the main person at Cass, out of all of the students, was Jay Jones. His name now is Kamal Kenyatta, producer of Gregory Porter.
Right.
He was there, and so many other.
Matt Michaels, was Matt Michaels there or no?
No, he's
I don't
before
remember.
me. Yes, but he did go to Cass.
Yeah.
And then our union president today, George Troyer, went there.
Troyer.
I can go on. Major Holly,
but you also work with Kenny Burrell. Wasn't Kenny Burrell a Cass guy?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Amazing. And then you went from Cass, that experience, and moved on. And you come across all these people, and these are stories. These are all little nuggets that I have to tell you I'm so impressed by, that you were involved with the Klughs and the Miles Davis and how did how
do you get started?
How do you get started doing all that stuff?
It's divine intervention from God. I believe that we're on a path. It's our lives are set when we're born, and if you have a love for something, if you do the right things will eventually work your way. And the reason I got out of Detroit, I've said this is documented. My break, I give him a lot of credit for it, and his name is James Jamerson.
Mr.
Great
Motown
bassist.
Motown.
I never forget, he was playing he was sitting there with Aretha's sister, Carolyn Franklin, at the Mozambique nightclub. He had just left Marvin Gaye at the Olympia on Grand River in Detroit. And he came there and he had this leather suit on. That was the style back then. He comes in and this is something I tell guys, they talk about, oh, the P bass, the bass. I heard Jameson play that night on a Paul McCartney Hofner Beatle bass.
Wow.
On a little bit, it looked like a little toy in his hands.
Yeah, right.
And it sounded like... He sounded like Jameson.
Wow. Yeah.
And he sat down with me, and he was drinking his Metaxa, the Greek brandy.
Right.
And he looks at me, he say, I tell you something, you little fat boy, you play good bass, but I got to tell you, the secret to playing the bass and it's the technique, because everybody wants to know how I can play the fretless bass. And I'm like, what the hell is a fretless bass? So dig this. I look in a 1972. I know the exact year because my bass, I just got my first precision bass. The bass I used with John McLaughlin was Candy Apple Red Precision Fender. There was an illustration of a bass this color, sunburst, and it was fretless. And I never seen it. So what I did, I ordered the fretless neck, $70 back then, and Otto Fortuna put it on my bass, and I started playing fretless because I could play the bass, violin, so I started playing fretless.
Right.
So dig this. I was walking home. Well, actually, I was getting off the bus from Cass Tech, and I had my Czechoslovakian bass violin with me, and I stopped at Miles Davis, bass player's house, Michael Henderson.
Right.
Michael says, man, I know these bad guys that need a bass player in Connecticut. And I played over the phone for Michael Narada Walden and Sandy Turano.
Wow.
Who's, you might know of Sandy.
Russ Turano? No.
Sandy. No, Sandy. Who has a business, he's in the jingle business too.
Yeah. So
anyway, long story short, about a week later, I'm on the airlines going to Canaan, Connecticut. So I get to Canaan, and I'm playing with Sandy and Narada. We're playing with all this high-energy fusion music. I was just 16. I just turned 16.
Yeah.
So Narada kept saying, Mahavishnu is coming. I said, what is Mahavishnu? I thought it was a new Indian dish that you eat. We getting Mahavishnu for dinner or something? He said, no, the great guitarist. And they were in the Sri Chinmoy, the spiritual religion, Indian.
Yeah.
So he comes up there, and I play. I didn't know I was auditioning for a group or anything. He went ballistic over me playing a fretless bass. I was like some piece of gold to him. I can't believe it. The sound. And on that same day, Jaco Pastorius was there. Because he auditioned too. I didn't realize there was an audition going on.
Right.
So he says, I'm going to call you. I want you to play bass. And I say, yeah, he's going to call this black kid from the east side to play bass. About 8 months later, never forget, it was a day almost like this. It was a little snowy. And I get this call. And it was John McLaughlin. He says, Ralph, somebody wants to talk to you. We want you to play bass. I'm like, who is it? It was Carlos Santana.
Oh, boy. I
swear to God, I was like Don Knotts in the Ghost of Mr. Chicken. I was like, Carlos, he's like a guy. I mean, to me, Carlos, it's like, you kidding me?